right now.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar today. We're excited to have you and excited to talk about this topic in particular. Today's webinar is called More Than Just Clicks, How Google Ad Grants Can Support Your Mission. Before we dive into the content, just a couple of housekeeping items that I want to go through. First, today's webinar will be interactive. We're going to try to save as much time as possible to the end. So go ahead and ask questions in the questions pane of GoToWebinar. Also, we are going to record today's webinar, and we're going to be sending everybody the link to the recording in the follow-up email. So with that, let me introduce myself and my co-host for today. My name is Gabe Cohen. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications here at GuideStar, and I work with the team to advance GuideStar's mission, increase adoption of our products and services. I'm calling in today from Washington, D.C. Joining us from California is Michelle Hurtado. She leads Google's Ad Grants program, and from starting her career supporting nonprofit communication strategies to diving into digital marketing 12 years ago, she's grateful to bring her interests together to serve nonprofits through ad grants. She, like I mentioned, resides in California with her husband and 3 children and holds degrees from Duke and Wharton. Also joining us today is Sean Kerr. Sean is the COO and co-founder of Cause Inspired Media, working with nonprofits across the country, ranging from community foundations to international initiative, gives him a unique perspective on the nonprofit fundraising landscape. This perspective is tempered by realistic expectations of digital advertising, a strong team of support. Sean is calling in from Florida today, and I can attest to everything that I just read there, because Sean is actually our project manager for our Google Ad Grants program, because GuideStar is a nonprofit as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, who's going to go through our agenda and get us started today.
Thanks so much, Gabe. Thanks again for everyone for joining. I'm Michelle, and I have the pleasure of leading the Google Ad Grants team. And the 7 of us on the team are really grateful to have the opportunity to help in some small way to the amazing work that you do. And we're here today to talk about how ad grants can help amplify your goals beyond a click to the website, and how can we take that further. So if you're not already an ad grantee, this webinar will help you get off to a great start. And you're welcome to join. Of course, we welcome more nonprofits to join us. And if you're already an ad grantee, we'll share how to improve your performance. I think everyone can probably take a tip, no matter what level you're at, if you will, in digital advertising. And so as far as an agenda goes, we'll first share a quick intro of ad grants. Next, we'll talk through how organizations can demonstrate results, then get really, really practical to offer tips to use ad grants effectively. And at the end, show you how to connect with ad grants for further support. So moving over to the next slide or two. So what is Google Ad Grants, first and foremost? We help connect people to your causes through free Google Ads. We offer $10,000 per month in free ad credit to use to further your missions. And our goal is to connect people to causes through these ads. So last year alone, we connected 51,000 nonprofits globally with 1.8 billion website visits. And hopefully that led to a lot of great exposure for the good work that you do. So for some context, background, the Google Ad Grants program is over 15 years old and has awarded over 115,000 grants to nonprofits in 51 countries. And just last year alone, we gave $2 billion in free advertising. And just to close a little bit about ad grants, I mean, our mission is to grow charitable giving and help nonprofits succeed online by connecting people to causes through meaningful ads. So we want to help you to create those meaningful ads and improve that performance over time. And so on the next slide, just wanted to mention, though we are a small team, we are here to help you. And we'll end today's session with a list of resources and email them to you also. But it's probably worth noting that, that we have a lot of partners and volunteers to help us, being a small team. So for example, we have a certified professionals community of agencies and consultants that you can see over here in the top left. And those are the agencies and professionals that we recommend, like Cause Inspired Media, his CEO, Sean, is here with us today, and I'm so grateful for him. We also have a program for students learning digital skills to volunteer with your ad grants account through the Google Ad Grants Online Marketing Challenge. So these are students who are certified in Google Ads overall, and then they essentially use your field study, if you will, and work with you for about 6 weeks to make recommendations and actually run your account for a little while and show you what to do for the long term, hopefully. And then on the bottom, you can see a little snippet of our Ad Grants YouTube channel, which has several webinars that we run on educational topics like how to raise ad quality or how to set up an automated rule or how to fix conversion tracking, basically, a lot of educational content. And then on the bottom right, we have the Ad Grants Online Community Forum, which is a really active community in terms of just asking questions for one another and getting perspectives. Like, for example, if you are a specific cause and you want to talk with other people about your cause and how to optimize your performance towards that and ask questions to each other, you'll find people on there who are willing to share. So with we'll come back to the goals in mind, or the resources here, but let's dive in now with Gabe to get us thinking big picture about our goals and our results.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. And I want to just spend a few minutes talking about what we do at GuideStar and how it relates to the conversation that's going on today. From a 30,000-foot view, GuideStar exists to help you as a nonprofit demonstrate your value out to the world. And so there's a way that happens, and we've kind of simplified it to 5 steps here. The first is, as a US-based nonprofit, you already have a profile on GuideStar, and we encourage you to come and update that profile. When you do, you'll get rewarded with a seal of transparency based on the kind of amount of information that you share. And then that information goes out to our users. We had 9 million users just on GuideStar.org last year. And then that information goes out to all of our different partners that use this information, including the team from Google for Nonprofits and Facebook, Network for Good, Amazon Smile. There's about 200 different platforms that use our information. Lastly, we're starting to track how being transparent and sharing your mission in this way and sharing the results that you're having really can help you grow the results and grow the progress that you're making as an organization. And we're seeing some really good indications of that. So the interesting thing that when we started talking with the Google for Nonprofits team, and we started to realize that there's really some parallels with the way that you can track your progress on GuideStar and the way that we think about that, and the way that you can track your results and some of your more meaty results in the Google Ad Grant program. And so I'm going to start to kind of bring that together now, but just if you want more information about updating your profile on GuideStar, you can go to guidestar.org/update, or to be really, really meta about this, you can Google update your profile on GuideStar and you will get one of our ads that Sean helped us get out there. But please don't do that, because then it would cost us money. And as all of you know, we would rather just you come directly from Google. So having said that, there's a little saying that we have around GuideStar, and that is there's no numbers without stories and no stories without numbers. And what we mean by that is that when you just share numbers, it really loses the emotion that you need to connect with your different types of stakeholders. And then if you were only to share numbers, if you're only to share stories, then you have no scale with it. There's no kind of quantification of how much impact you're having as an organization. And so it's really that second part that we want to work on today. But just know that we do encourage you to think about this holistically and think about both those numbers and the stories at the same time. So with that, I want to think about numbers in 2 different axes for my little part of the conversation here. And the first one I call the results continuum. And then the second one is going to be this question of, are you using a common metric or are you using a custom metric? And I'll get to that one in just a minute. But let's start with the results continuum. Most nonprofits know this idea of having a difference between sharing an input and sharing an output and sharing an outcome. But I just want to dive into this a bit because, like I said, it really parallels the way that I think Michelle and team are thinking about demonstrating your results through the ad grant program. And a lot of times we're starting with just inputs, right? You're very easily able to track the number of website visitors that you're getting through your ads, right? That would be an input. And those inputs relate to the resources and to the kind of the context of how your organization functions. It's pretty easy to track. The next would be outputs, right? And this relates to the services that your organization offers. And I'm going to share some examples of that in just a minute. A lot of times these are moderately easy to track. Lastly, kind of the holy grail of things is the outcomes, right? How your organization ends up making a difference with your beneficiaries at the end of the day. This can be much more difficult to track. Inputs are kind of nice, outputs are even better, and then outcomes are really great when it comes to demonstrating your organization's value. So let's take a look at some quick examples, and we have 3 different types of organizations. So the first one you could think of as a food bank, or like a soup kitchen sort of thing. And so your input could be the number of donors that you have, and output would be meals served, but then the outcome where you're really trying to get is the reduction of hunger in the population served. Next would be an advocacy organization, and so you could track how many website visitors you have, but then moving on and more meaningful, you could track how many meetings you have with lawmakers, and lastly, you could pass how many bills are passed in whatever legislative body you're working with. And then we have education services, where you could track volunteer hours, moving the kids tutored, and then finally to GPA improvement overall. So the further we can get, whether we're talking about GuideStar, whether we're talking about Google Ad Grant Program, or whether we're talking about just how you share this information on your website or in your own channels, the more you can get to the right there, the better off you're going to be. So GuideStar created a document to try to help with this second axis that I want to talk about. And that is, are you using common results, or are you going to create custom ones? The idea here, the end goal, is apples to apples as possible. When you start to think about the difference that your organization is making versus the difference that a similar organization is making. So to do that, we created what we call a common results catalog. And I've just got some examples from 5 different types of organizations that you can find in GuideStar's common results catalog. We created this catalog with help from dozens of experts. It includes everything from inputs to outputs to outcomes, covers 15 different cause areas, and it's accessible both in a PDF format and then an app version, which I'm going to show you in just a second. There's about 800 metrics or so that are included in that, and we do regularly update this. But what I wanted to show here, every single one of these metrics that you can see outlined here, every single one of these could be tracked as part of the Google Ad Grant Program. So again, this is the kind of parallel that we're trying to demonstrate today, that just because you're working on it in GuideStar in your GuideStar profile, or just because you're thinking about it in your Google Ad Grant, that means that you could potentially share that across different platforms. So I'm going to share this video real quick. Well, we'll see if it works first, because of course, technical difficulties. But what this is the back end of GuideStar, where you can start to actually both see and input some of these numbers. So I've sped this up. This is about 200% speed, but you can see here, you can just search for different metrics and they'll come up. You can click on the left-hand side, or I'm going to show you what it looks like if you want to add your own custom metric. Again, we understand that sometimes it makes sense to use custom metrics, but if you can already kind of use the head start that we've given and use those common metrics, then we think that's really, really great, because it's going to help everybody demonstrate their value, including the sector as a whole. So what you're seeing here is just how easy it is to update those metrics. Very quickly, I want to share some of the results that we're seeing at GuideStar as to which both of those axes, kind of what we're seeing. And so first, we're seeing a large majority of outputs, which is great. We're seeing some inputs, some outputs, and then a fair amount of outcomes too, which is really fantastic. And again, we feel like we want to kind of help nonprofits move down that continuum. And then in terms of common versus custom, we're seeing about 73% common metrics, which is awesome, because it really helps us as a sector take ourselves seriously in the way that we compare organization to organization. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Michelle. And Michelle, you can take over from here.
All right, thanks so much, Gabe. So yeah, this is perfectly aligned with ad grants as a whole. We want to help you support your website visitors to take action, not just click. And we really think ad grants is a tool for you to amplify your goals. So Sean and I will take you through 5 steps to define your goals and to set up that tracking and to make your account performance as strong as it can be by showing relevant ads and learning and improving from it, and then even on to automating it. So real quick, I'm just gonna click through again. No, go ahead and, yeah, there you go, someone else can click there. 1 second here. All right, So first, obviously, to Gabe's point, you must put some thought into what you want someone to do when they're visiting your site. Often, a user will complete a search on google.com, they view your ad, they may click on your ad, and then they arrive at your website. But then what happens? They've got a lot of options to take there, and we want to draw them into action, usually by taking them closer to where they wanted to go. Website design is obviously its own field, but the point is to start with your goals so that you can help people take that action. And a primary goal for a lot of nonprofits is to have a donation. So reaching that donation thank you page is usually a goal that nonprofits will set up in their AdGrants account. But how do people become engaged enough to donate? It's harder to optimize your ad performance for donations. You want to set goals on the path to get there. For example, perhaps spending at least a few minutes reading your case studies, or signing up for an event, signing up your email newsletter, of course, maybe purchasing something that's branded, by your nonprofit's name, or becoming a member, buying a ticket to the museum, whatever it might be. The importance of doing that is so that then you have several levers from which you can optimize to get towards an end goal of donations potentially. And for us, goals or outcomes, these, when you think about it in digital ad kind of terminology, we call these conversions. When they're set up in your account, it's about a conversion. And so we want to build your site in a way where you can track the results. So let me bring you through how to start thinking about tracking those results. So you know that Google's ads have tremendous reach and show ads in an extremely relevant and actionable and measurable way. Literally, you can think of it as these ads respond to an individual who's looking for something at that moment. That they're very much in that mindset, and we just have to provide the answer and then that path to take an action. So what you see here are all examples that you can track from your website and AdGrants, and I know that catalog has many, many more. So that's a whole lot more than clicks. And just two things to note here in particular is in this first box over here, the purchase and sale, which we call it in our interface, but really it's more like probably a fee or a donation in nonprofit terms. You can actually track the actual value. Like if someone donated $20 or $100, you'd want to track exactly how much so you can optimize towards getting more donations overall, for example. And another thing to note is, when selecting goals, you can actually have different parts of your organization or different programs select different goals. You can track many in AdGrants or Google Ads generally. So going forward here, we highly recommend another free tool called Google Analytics, and that integrates with your Google Ads or AdGrants. So with tracking, you can understand the campaign effectiveness, and this is like the start to being able to perform well with your AdGrants. And so, you want, like with Google Analytics, it'll show you what people do on your website, and you just link it to your AdGrants account. What's also really interesting is that it tracks all website activity, not just traffic from Google. So if you're working with Facebook or whomever else, it also can get you the information that you need across. So it's extra worthwhile there. And then another piece is that it shows you when people reach goals with their paths to get there, so that you can tell, like, you want to get them to this goal, but where are they dropping off? And then you can do some interesting testing to figure out, okay, if I change this piece of content, maybe they stay longer, maybe they take the action then. And so analytics is its own interface, but it's pretty user-friendly after you get the code set up one time. And in fact, for those of you who are more marketers, we also have like a product called Google Tag Manager, also free, which is where your IT folks might set up the code initially, but then you as a marketer can control your goals much more easily using Google Tag Manager. So next, I want to just tell you about when you have your goals planned. Let's talk about like how you actually would track those. So there's 5 ways. First is called destination in our terms. It means that you count when someone reaches a web page that is a destination. It's a specific URL, like a thank you page for signing up for your newsletter. Next is an event, which counts as a goal if people take an action by clicking on a button, like a submit button or a play button on your video. And so as an example, if you have a contact us button that leads to a pop-up of some sort and not necessarily a web page, you can't use destination to track that they contacted you, but you can track the click of the button instead. Another way is called SMART goals. It's many of the rest of them are actually unique to Google Analytics, and this one is a way that where Google's machine learning technology can figure out what's valuable to you by looking at the actions of the top 5% of highest quality clicks to your site. And it thinks about it from a standpoint of what was their, which users stayed longer, how many pages they visit, and much more. And then the next two are actually duration and pages visited, which are goals oriented around saying how long did someone spend on your time on your site, how many pages did they visit, which just takes a click a little bit further to engagement. And these are helpful because you'd want to adjust your campaigns if most people just click and then they might bounce, like leave your site. You want to make sure that you are reaching the people who are going to stay on your site a little bit longer. So one more thing to note on conversion tracking before we get into like real hard tips on how to work ad grants is that if your donations flow through a partner, donation processing partner like a Classy or a Blackbaud or a Network for Good or even Braintree, you can still track whether your ads lead to donations. Sometimes I find that nonprofits think that they can't do it, and it is definitely possible. It's 7 steps here, but really only 2 or 3 of them are kind of unique to this particular space. And you can call like Classy, for example, and they'd be happy to help you out with it because we have partnerships with them. So just to walk you through a little bit, a little example here is like, for example, if you use Classy, you would set up a subdomain like donate.organizationname.com. And then all you really have to do is add your Google Analytics account number to Classy's site like profile, the integration section, or in other providers it's called widgets. And then you have a step where you would exclude your subdomain from being a referral, so that that does involve one piece of bit of code on your donation page there. And you enable cross-domain tracking, which is just a selection on their profile. Then you come back to Google Analytics and you just exclude that subdomain from being a referral URL. And lastly, you set up the goal and import it over to Google Analytics. From Google Analytics into Google Ads. So from here, you'll know how much your ads contribute to your fundraising, which is really nice to obviously be able to optimize your ads for. So with that, just took you through pretty quickly about defining your goals and setting up tracking. There's a lot more information about tracking on our Help Center. We have a full guide to walk you through the exact steps so that you could hand over to someone who is placing code on the website. And we even have a program where we can get you help in that area if you reach out to us in some way. So, but let's switch gears now and talk about showing relevant ads and improving your performance, and then lastly towards automating towards results. So this is kind of the heart of online advertising, and it might be something some are familiar with, but there's always room to take this further. Basically, let's go back to just thinking about how does Google show an ad to someone typing on google.com? It's literally because you would tell us which types of searches you want to show an ad for. And in the way that you tell us is through a concept called keywords. The idea is to pick keywords where the person searching will want to click on your ad and will be interested in your website content. You literally think of it as an ad answering that person's need exactly when they want it. And it's all about the relevancy. That's why Google Ads is a successful piece of part of marketing, because it's super relevant. So in the account, you'll want to group keywords together so that you can write a very relevant ad for that group of keywords. That concept is shown here in green, and we call them ad groups because each green box would have a unique ad or unique set of ads for the keywords that are within them. So I'm going to give you an example where you can, let's look at the middle boxes actually, where you'd want to show a different ad to people who are interested in volunteering with your organization as a student for a short-term piece versus people who are trying to do a family holiday or people who are local to your area. You'd want to call out in your ad that you have short-term opportunities, or specifically, meet people while you're traveling and help and do good as well, right? So with that, I want to go ahead and transition over to Sean, and he can show you a couple examples of what this would look like.
Thanks, Michelle. If we start looking at here, we have a few different variations of how you can do an ad group. This first one, as it's labeled pretty clearly, just okay. It includes keywords that are about learning to code, about classes, about kids learning to code, and adults. This will get some traction. It will get some clicks. It'll be seen. But someone that's going to be a little bit more organized with their ad groups and their ads is going to get a better return here. So if we look at our good example, we've broken up our keywords to be more specific. They are about kids learning to code, kids computer classes. There's still some variation that can happen here, but one group is about kids, one group is about adults. The main topic hasn't changed, but you're addressing your audience because you can make your ads tighter to address the kids or the adults. Whereas if we look at it here at the end here, the last or better or best example here, we've broken up into 3 different groups of keywords: classes for kids coding online, kids live coding classes, and kids learning how to code. So this is self-study, kids guide to. It's more for kids learning on their own rather than in a class specifically. Now we can go down and go through many iterations of this, variation into boys versus girls, teens versus kids. There's all sorts of variations here, but really you just want to make sure that your keywords in your ad groups are very closely related. And to take a closer look at this and how you would actually find what keywords you would want to use for your organization, I think Michelle has a few tips for you.
Yep, let's talk about how to find so many keywords. Because we call this building out your keyword list, and highly encourage it to get really specific. A little fun fact, Google, though we process, I think it's 2 billion searches a day, 20 billion actually, I think it is, we actually see 15% of keywords are new every single year. It's super relevant, and just people's vocabulary is just so unique and varied and so interesting. So we want to help you find keywords, and so we have 5 tips here. So first, obviously, is what most people would start with is, your website structure. You add keywords that reflect each portion of your website and do what comes to mind, obviously. Ask some friends, of course, and see how people around your organization as a fun little exercise would think about things differently. How would you search for this? I sometimes ask a coworker, and it's completely different than the way I initially thought about. Obviously, when you are thinking about upcoming events or new programs, you'd want to build out new campaigns. This is a very dynamic channel for marketing, and one of the really cool things about it is that it's how dynamic it is. You can get a new ad up and running in a matter of minutes. So think about things that are upcoming to you and add keywords as they're relevant, as they become relevant. So for example, if something is, an awareness month, it's breast cancer awareness month coming up, let's say, or Children's Day in Brazil, and you want to speak to that specific audience that's who's thinking about that or has that top of mind and might spark interest in your content, just add that. Another tip is to use your Google Analytics account. It's a unique place to get this kind of information. Basically, all of the folks who come into your website from finding it from on what we call organic, like non-ads on google.com, you'll see exactly what they typed in. So then you might want to use that for ideas on what you'd also want to put an ad next to, because having both the ad and that link there will essentially let you take more time, take more space up on the real estate of the google.com search results page, and hopefully lead to more clicks. Another tool, another free tool for that matter, is called Google Trends, and it actually it offers information about people's searching patterns. And so this is particularly important, I think, in the nonprofit space, because you get to understand how news is leading people to search into content that you might have something to say about. So you can add a campaign on a moment's notice. Like, for example, obviously in humanitarian crises, you want to be there to show not just the news about everything necessarily, but how someone can take action right away. Or, you know, more recently when we had some drug addiction, so like celebrities suffering from drug addiction or suicides in the news, unfortunately a little bit more recently. If you know, people are thinking right then about mental health, or they're thinking about the drug crisis, and so you know, you can be there when they're in that mode and tell them, hey, you can help. And then lastly, there's another piece that is within the Ad Grants account called the search terms report. Super, super helpful. It will show you the actual search terms that someone used to see your ad. And that gives you, it's slightly different than the keyword, because it will give you the exact terminology, not just what kind of matched related to your keyword. So you use this to find variations of your account, of your keywords. And then it also is really helpful to make sure that you are being really relevant and not showing for ads that are a little bit not quite right. And we call that adding negative keywords. You want to look for keywords that you do not want to show ads for, and exclude them from your account. So let's hear from Sean on how to continuously learn and improve your keywords.
Yeah, definitely. The focus I really want to go into here is a little bit deeper dive on what Michelle was just talking about on the search terms report. My biggest tip would be to really be in there at least monthly, looking at what people are actually searching for versus the things that you originally thought about. That exercise about going through your website, going through analytics, going through trends is incredibly important to find your core concepts. But not everybody searches the same. So you want to be able to look through what people were actually searching for. The way they actually typed to themselves might be differently than the way you wrote a keyword. And you can see not only new ideas for keywords of things you should be bidding on, but also find those cases where you absolutely shouldn't show. For example, your organization is helping people to study abroad. You want to make sure you don't have keywords for luxury travel or your normal booking flight type searches. This is more in line with your organization and what you're doing, less about the broader topic. So sometimes your initial instinct brought in a lot of traffic that you really don't want. It's not relevant to you. You got some brand awareness, but people left really quickly. You really want to make sure that as you move forward, you find new ideas and you find those things that you're just wasting your budget on. You should move on and find that next thing, right? So once you've decided what keywords to bid on, and then you start going through and analyzing what searches are right for you, you have to really focus in on your ads. And Michelle's going to take us to the next step there.
Yep, so let's talk a little bit about creating effective ads on Google.com. We have a few main tips here. Basically, the first and foremost is it's kind of related to that relevancy point, but use keywords in your ad titles. Essentially, respond to the person's search using their own words so that you relate, and it draws their attention, literally their eyeballs, over to the words that they just typed in, and so they see that it's super targeted and relevant to them, really. And then obviously you want to have a call to action. I know that as marketers you already know this in a lot of ways, but we do see ads that rely a little bit more on their brand term maybe, but it's more about showing them what they can do if they click, so that they can relate to whether that's what they want to do. So for example, you could use something like buy a backpack here and we'll donate one to a child in need. Like if they were looking specifically to buy a backpack, answer them and then tell them what else they can do with the site. Relevant landing page, Sean will go into this in more depth. This is super, super important. You want to send people to a relevant page for them that answers their need, so that they're not they don't basically bounce, that they don't just they're looking for but they can't quite find it. There's several other things on the page for them. You want to answer them so that they can take action. And so that actually, I remember one of the first ways I got into digital marketing was in a testing scenario for relevant landing pages, and ads actually give you a lot of information for what people are looking for, and it actually gives you a lot of ideas to build out content for your site so that you can be a little bit more responsive and connect more to people that are interested. And then lastly, there's one other piece about just making sure that you're showing in relevant locations. You know, a lot of times you'll set up, I've seen that you know, people will set up an account and they just say, all right, I generally want to show everything to the United States, or, you know, for example, but you only want to show your ads where it's really relevant. And you can actually vary your ads by setting up different campaigns depending on what you offer where. So let's say, as an example, you offer, you know, educational resources to everyone in the United States, but you offer support groups in particular in a local area or several local areas. You would set up different campaigns for those, and you would only want to ask, or, you know, put keywords into your account that relate to something that you can offer them, so that they don't just bounce. Because if they do bounce, we'll get into this a little bit next, or a little bit later, but, you know, Google will see that users aren't really liking that ad, and it kind of drags down your ad quality, which won't let you show as many ads to the people who really could use that service in the local area. So as a general tip for us, we recommend testing 3 to 4 ads in each ad group and using, you know, different messages, because you can actually see which gets higher click-through rates. I've seen organizations do really cool things like test their brand messaging and their tagline just by seeing what do people click on, what do they gravitate towards. So so again, relevancy and then test as well is a big tip. So let's look at a few examples actually with Sean on GuideStar's account.
Great. Yeah, we're gonna actually use some real examples here. Instead of being fairly abstract, we're gonna go through what a good ad actually looks like and what a bad ad looks like. And it's not just about keywords, but those are very important. The keys to a good ad copy seem simple enough. You need unique content, include the keyword and a call to action, and make sure the tone is right. But we see organizations miss opportunities for this all the time when we take over accounts that are currently running, whether they've been trying to do it themselves or an agency that's not maybe giving them as much attention. And here we see 2 different ads from ad sets from GuideStar's account. Obviously, the bad ones are not actually running, but they're here. On the left, we see a reference to what Gabe was discussing earlier about being a little bit meta about our seal of transparency. In the first top ad on the left, we see that it is a branded ad. These aren't always going to be the best for you, but with GuideStar, they have a strong presence in the industry. People tend to know generally who they are at the very least. And in this case, this is an ad for a branded keyword where someone is actually looking for GuideStar's seal of transparency rather than a nonprofit seal, a nonprofit badge, something like that. So here we also see that we answer the question directly of you're getting the GuideStar seal of transparency here. This is where you find it. We find the benefits of earning a seal, and we ask the user to come along with us. We ask them to examine the impact. What can you gain from this, right? Whereas the bad version of this ad doesn't directly answer the question. It's not a keyword right in the headline or the ad text anywhere. The tone is wrong from the beginning. You're earning more, whereas learning about transparency. Your call to action is about mastering transparency techniques, which is not the point of the badge, right? On the right here, we have another search for social media for nonprofits. GuideStar happens to have a blog about this topic. So we start out directly with the keyword right in the headline, social media for nonprofits. This is exactly what you're looking for, or some variation of this. Then you sort of get a hook of 8 ways to grow your followers. What are you gonna learn? What is the expectation here? People will automatically know exactly what the point is. And then you get a call to action of come along with us, learn how to create an impact. Without being too hard on people, you really set up the expectation. Whereas, again, the tone here is not right for either GuideStar as the expert in the industry or for the audience. Nonprofit executives, nonprofit development directors, et cetera, are not looking to make money with social media. That may be an auxiliary effect, of improving your social media is you maybe get more donations, make more volunteers, things like that. But that's not the thought process, right? And the last thing to note here is the URLs of each of these ads. With Google Ads, you can control where you're sending people, and you can also control the end part, what are called paths. So in our good ads, we see that we are very specific, letting people know what to expect right in the URL. Whereas with the others, you either have something that's maybe a little off or just doesn't give you anything, right? And if we go to the next slide, we can take a look at a few other great things you can do with ads. With ads, you don't stop at the ad copy, but some of the rules that you learned go along with you. You can take advantage of every piece of space, making sure you're using the right tone. And as we look here, what extensions do is they do just that. They extend your ads. You're able to add useful information, whether it is the option to call you, whether it's your location, or what are something called site links, which give people the option to go to other parts of your website. They were looking for your organization generally, but maybe they need to go to the About Us, or they want to go straight to the Donate. These are actually required under the policies that came out last December for ad grants. So you're going to make sure you have these. And then no matter how good your ads are, you have to make sure you're going to the right landing page. So what do you do next once you have a good set of ads? Thanks for the next slide. What you do once you have something that is working is you really need to go in and do lots of variations. Go into smaller and smaller subgroups. Make sure that your ad groups are very tightly themed, as we see here. And make sure that you're getting the most out of your budget. The other option, and this is something we see a lot of nonprofits do, we've seen success with our clients working with this, is to supplement your grant with a paid account. There's plenty of things that the grant account can't do on its own. It covers search, it's a great budget for you, but sometimes there are certain keywords that even after you have maximized your grant, you either don't show well enough for, or you want to reach a different audience there, and you want to be a little bit more specific. Or if you want to do display campaigns, we see display and remarketing do very well, as well as YouTube, these sorts of things as an auxiliary to bring very specific audience in that you're not able to reach with the grant, as an auxiliary to this really great tool that we have. And then I want to transition here to what happens when you get people to your site. What makes a good landing page? I look at it as having 3 key points. You need to have content, right? The Google search engine, whether you're talking about organic, whether people are finding you on their own, or whether you're having ads show, you need to make sure that you have clear text content that it explains the topic. You're answering the question. You're giving something unique, something relevant to the audience. You also need this to be clear. I think clarity is incredibly important. If it's not clear why someone is here or what they're doing next, you'll make them wonder. And if a user is wondering why they're on the page, they're going to leave, and they're going to leave quickly. So you also need to make sure you have a call to action. It doesn't matter if it's a blog page or if it is a donate page, if it's your home page. There should be something to get users involved. And luckily, Google lets us know exactly what it thinks of our landing pages. On our next slide, there's a great tool that Google gives us to evaluate the site, improve ad quality. It lets us know how fast the page loads. This is another free tool. As Michelle's mentioned, quite a few great free tools so far. Here's another awesome one. We use this all the time at Cause Inspired Media. And often people are surprised at how fast pages are. You might think you have a great site and it looks visually wonderful, but is it loading well on mobile? Is that making people click the back button before it even loads in the first place? What is going on there that is going to take good performance and make it bad. That's all going to come through with this kind of tool. And often people are a little surprised at what things that are very simple to fix are found by this tool. It's not just the speed of your internet connection or the web connection or your hosting, though these are all important. There's elements of every web page that can slow you down significantly. Outside of this tool, Google lets you know quite a bit about what it thinks about individual keywords and how they match up, whether it's your landing page or your keyword. And Michelle's going to take us there with quality score.
Absolutely. So directly in the account, Google gives you a sense of ad quality by assigning a quality score to each keyword. And overall, the quality score would just generally tell you whether people are finding your ads useful, or if you should take action to make them more useful. So each keyword is rated a score from 1 on the low end to 10 on the high end. And the system gives you further information on the 3 big components of quality. So those are expected click-through rate, which means how likely someone is to click based on their search term, based on what kind of device they're on, based on their region, and based on what kind of ads are showing around yours, other ads. And another point is around ad relevance. So how relevant your ad is to that search. So this one comes into play a lot when you're bidding on possibly very broad terms, like let's say puppy care. But that might be a keyword, but the person searching might have typed in something a little bit more oriented towards care for their fur, or care in the sense of vitamins, or how often to bring them to the vet, or something else. And so, depending on how far that space is between the keyword and the search term, you'll get an ad relevance score within it. And lastly is that landing page experience. Definitely keep going back to that one. It's super helpful, or super critical, really. And that gives you a sense of really whether users stay or leave when they land on your site. And if you want a little, a tip for more of an exact measurement of this, Google Analytics gives you the keywords across many different ways, and then it gives you a bounce rate, so you'll have an idea of how correlated it is there. But to find your quality score, you just hover over the status button or status area of a given keyword inside the account, as shown in the picture on the right, or you can filter for it also, and then you'll get that extra information for it. And so, within ad grants, it's not effective to show low quality ads no matter what, but within ad grants, we also don't even permit quality scores of 1 or 2 in the program. So I want to show you a very easy way to automatically follow those. Basically, I think it would be worth reviewing keywords that have a quality score of 5 or lower at any time and start working with those to see what you can do to improve their performance. But for the really low ones, you want to set up an automated rule to pause the keywords that have that quality score of 1 or 2. And it's a little bit simpler than it looks on this slide. It's just it asks you a couple questions, and they're fairly intuitive, but you can actually find a 3-minute video walking you through this on our YouTube channel also. But to get here, you click on the little tool icon on the top of your account, and then you'll walk through how to actually pause these keywords so that you never have to worry about it, and it just kind of aids your day-to-day management. And then one other automation kind of tip is that, I'd have to back up here a little bit. Basically, in digital ads overall, there's actually this concept of bidding for the keywords you want. And that's in comparison to other organizations who want to show their ads for the same keyword. I actually skipped over that part a little bit more on purpose, because not only are nonprofits very collaborative and ad grants gives a large budget, but it's actually, there's just an easier way to bid, and we incentivize this by letting your bids go higher if you use it. So we highly recommend setting your bidding strategy to what's called maximize conversions. And that is where our machine learning within the system will optimize towards the goals that you've told us that are important to you. And it learns over time, and it continuously optimizes your account. And it really puts a lot more context into things so that you could you could bid a certain amount in one area and a different amount in another area, a geographic area, or depending on, mobile versus another kind of device, or just the variations, all the, the types of folks that are bidding for you. It gets really sophisticated. And so this really only works if you kind of come back full circle and set up your goals as conversions, and if you're generally optimizing your account for making sure that you're bidding on the right keywords. So let's lastly talk through just a couple ways to think about the lot of data that's available in your account to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, definitely. To Michelle's point on the smart bidding and the conversions, they are incredibly important. That is one of the biggest changes that's happened in the past year for us, and that has made us use our data differently. We've seen incredible changes in the types of conversions that our clients are seeing. Nonprofits getting more and more donor dollars because of this change from the grants department. We're super excited about it. But to look here at this overview, Google's new interface has a lot of really great tools for us. And in the grant account itself, especially because you have such a big budget, there is a plethora of information. It can definitely be a daunting point for you when you first get into one of these accounts, finding out what's going on, what's working, what's not. But it's also incredibly empowering. You know exactly what keyword triggered what ad to get what click, and if it did, if that user did what you wanted to once they got to the website. So there's a lot of information, but it's incredibly important to go through it. Inside of your account, there are all sorts of different things you can do to look at this. You can start here with this overview page, which has comparisons. You can look at your clicks, your conversions. You can look at everything from when a click happened to how much it cost right in the same chart, and you can change all of that information. So it's incredibly important to understand what is happening at the micro and the macro levels. Looking here, we can actually modify these charts not only to be just what metric we're looking at, whether we're looking at clicks or conversions in the chart. We can modify what goes into our tables. We can see what columns we want to see. We can narrow it down to the averages. We can narrow it down to only items that are related to specific keywords or campaigns that we're doing. You can break down much more than the default of these metrics. And what we do here is we will get sort of custom columns of things we use frequently, and we can save that so that you can then come back to that again and again and see the same type of information change over time. So it's also worth noting that that filter is there and it's savable. You can modify those columns, you can modify the charts, and really deep dive into what is actually going on in your account.
All right, now I'll just close out with a little bit of a takeaway. We've given you a lot of content here and almost at time even. So real quick, just want to emphasize, if you could just take a couple takeaways from this, always start a campaign by defining your goals. Definitely set up tracking, call us if you need help doing that, and we highly recommend Google Analytics tracking. Everyone can probably go a little bit deeper into showing your relevant ads by ensuring keywords are grouped really, really thematically, and learning and improving. So make sure you check your search terms report and set up that automated rule. And lastly, enable maximize conversions bidding, at least to try it. We have a couple others as well. That's probably the one that we would recommend though, given the large budget. So I'll end with last couple concepts on how to connect with the Ad Grants team. We are a small team, but we offer educational live streams and lots of informative videos. We do hands-on local workshops as well. We offer volunteers from time to time, and we also have that program where we have students who are volunteering with your accounts that we train. We offer personalized account tips, and we have very active question and answer community forums. So, keep out an eye for any in-product notifications from us that you would see in the little bell icon in your account, and opt into emails from us if you want invitations to the events that we're hosting. Specifically, you'd have to be opted into customized performance and suggestions emails and the special offers emails. And lastly, here's just a list of resources for you. So if you want to ask us a question, I'm on that forum directly. For example, we have that YouTube channel that gets updated as we produce more videos that we hope are very helpful for you. We have our certified professionals directory if you're interested in agency or want to check out if your agency that you might already be using is on there. You can call us, and you can also get student volunteers through that short link. So I'm going to turn over to Gabe so we can answer a question or two at least.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. An excellent job by you and Sean. I learned a bunch during that, so I'm sure everybody else did as well. We only have a few minutes left here, so we're going to try to fit in as many questions as possible, but then we're going to be following up with the audience with additional resources in the future to try to get to more of these questions. But with that, let me dive in again for the next few minutes here. So we did have quite a few questions about the difference between AdWords and AdWords Express. Michelle, is that something maybe that you could talk about?
Yeah, so we really, we offer both products in ad grants, for example. And really the difference is just that AdWords Express, you set a goal and you give a sense of what you're going for, and we try to optimize and automate the picking and selection of keywords in the background. And so it does make your life easier, but it also limits the amount of control that you have to take advantage of all the optimization kind of tips that we've just given you. I think of it as, if you want to try out ads online, certainly you can, we highly encourage most people to start with AdWords Express, but, there's so much more you can do. So we particularly emphasize, if you can set those goals and take it a little bit further to optimize through regular Google Ads or standard ads product. It just depends a little bit on how much you're able to invest in it, of course, too.
Great, that makes perfect sense. Sean, quick answer maybe to this next one that Brian asked, what's your opinion of using your organization's name as a keyword? By doing so, I end up paying, in quotes, for a click that I would otherwise probably not pay for, because I would be the top result from an organic perspective. So anything you could offer on that, Sean?
Yeah, totally. As long as your budget allows you to, I would highly recommend this, because, and here's why. You're able to control the narrative a little bit more. So if maybe you have a competitor bidding on your name, you can sort of squeeze them out a little bit. Make sure that you are controlling the message that surrounds your name, coming above news stories about yourself, etc. But you can also use that space to direct people to something that's maybe more time-sensitive relevancy. If you have an upcoming event, you can bid on your own name. That event has your name all over it, so it's going to be relevant. And you can drive people to the event rather than just your homepage, making sure that you're taking people that already know who you are and getting them to something that matters.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, Michelle and Sean, thank you so much. Again, we are at time, so we are going to follow up with a lot more answers to these questions in the future, so just stay tuned to your inbox. And again, yeah, you're seeing some of those resources on this last slide here. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for bearing with our technical issues, too. Have a great rest of your afternoon.